We're expecting it to do two things for us. One is to drive 3 times the value that some of our existing products do by
Nice.
adjusting the journey in some way. And the other is
Buy-led growth. Hello and welcome back to the Buy-led Growth Show, where we dissect B2B SaaS growth challenges and reframe them so that you can continue growing while reducing wasted spend. Today we're joined by Courtney Bain, the Senior Product Manager at Rokt, a fast-growing Australian SaaS startup. Courtney, thanks very much for joining us. Great to have you here.
great to be here. Looking forward to having just great debate and discussion with you.
Yes. Well, look, we've known each other for a while. I think the first time we met, you stole the show at a product marketing alliance event talking about personas and brought the big cardboard cutout that was almost as tall as you, which we loved. Since then, you've had a bit of a change. You've moved from product marketing now into product management. I'd love to explore that a little bit. But first, who are you? Why do we love you so much? And what does Rokt do?
Yeah, I did make that transition from product marketer to product manager. My background was over 10 years in the marketing and communication space. I worked agency and client side across creative agencies, CX, CRM, basically every facet of marketing I've probably touched at some point in my career. And I was increasingly attracted to working with engineers and data teams on actually building those experiences. And a friend of mine who worked at a startup was like, have you thought about product management? So a couple of years ago, never had really knew what product management was, looked into it and I was like, that's where I want to be. That seems like a great fit for me. So made the transition 2 years ago at Cash Rewards and have been at Rokt for the last 4 months. And as much as I love product marketing and sometimes I can't help myself but get stuck into it, product management, I'm really enjoying and it's a really good sideways step for me.
Look, I love that. Not too dissimilar. Like I started my career in tech, moved into sales, and like you, like I just wanted to participate in building something and like growing it, like really making a difference. And so I was looking for product manager roles, and I remember talking to this hiring manager who became my boss. Hired me. He's like, Andrew, I really think you should be in product marketing, and I'm like, well, no, Ed, I really want to do product management. He's like, Andrew, I really think. And so here we are. So, no, totally get that. And look, we product marketers and product managers just work really closely together, similar but different, same but different. And so what is it Rokt does? And is that ROCKED?
ROKT.
Ooh,
yes.
Yeah.
People often call us Rocket and all other sorts of things, but we are Rokt. So we are what Google is to search or Facebook and Meta is to social media for e-commerce businesses. So we enable our e-commerce partners to drive more value from every transaction on their website or mobile app. We do this using our unique machine learning platform that we've developed over the last 10 years. We were Australian founded. We're now headquartered out of New York. But that platform powers billions of transactions a year. And what we do is serve relevant, compelling offers to customers. Now, that could be third-party offers through a closed kind of ads marketplace. It could be upsell offers, or it could be first-party engagement campaigns. So pulling all that together to show what is actually relevant to Andrew for that partner in that transaction moment. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
I thought so. That's why I joined.
Yeah. And look, the move to New York, is that because of acquisition or just like strategic growth? What was behind
That
that
was
that
a
shift?
strategic growth decision a couple of years ago. I want to say around, I think, 2016, 2017, obviously before my time. But yeah, just the opportunity to grow. And now we're worldwide, got offices in New York, Seattle, London, Tokyo, and Sydney, as well as Canada. We've
Oh,
expanded there
nice.
recently as well.
Well, make
Yeah.
sure we don't turn the lights out on our Canadian friends.
Yeah, exactly.
So like that kind of half answers my next question. You mentioned billions of transactions. Obviously, that's not Australia. Tell me a little bit more around how you're seeing the change in retail, online, e-commerce with what's happening in the world from your perspective, and how that's different between, say, Asia, Australia, the US, Europe.
I think there's quite a lot of commonalities between like verticals within some of the different geography areas, but what we've started to see is lots of different verticals becoming e-commerce businesses and needing to drive those additional ancillary revenue streams through their digital activity. So we kind of often used to think of e-commerce equals retail, but that's not the mix we see anymore. So Rokt does a lot in the live entertainment space, in travel, airlines, B2B, telecom, fin services, kind of pretty much every vertical is touched in some way. And there's different nuances that they need. So that's where our closed ads marketplace is really important, so that there's enough control over what those partners can actually show, and making sure, again, it's relevant to that customer as well as contextually for that partner.
Awesome. I love that insight into it's not just like traditional e-com now. So I suppose this really plays into that whole disruption around digital transformation, adoption of direct to market, that DTC for what might have been traditionally a multi-layered distribution network. Like we see Tesla goes direct to market, Ford has dealerships. And so is that what you mean by helping those sort of non-traditional e-com companies?
Yeah, and that's something else that we can support, is that sometimes these businesses will have strategic partnerships with like wholesalers or other businesses, and they need to kind of fulfill those obligations as well as push those partnerships as a priority, but then also take advantage of our Rokt network of a larger number of businesses where those offers could come from. Because anyone who's worked in partnerships marketing, I'm sure we both have, it's very time consuming to set those up. So Rokt enables our e-commerce partners to promote both, because that's kind of where things are heading, that a lot of people are pushing to have that D2C offering. But it's also expensive to run operationally and have everything set up. So that's also the benefit a lot of partners have, and why they bring in Rokt is an additional revenue stream that they can drive that business profitability and invest back into their business.
So like I came from the tech world in IT, worked for a lot of software vendors. A big part of the appeal of digital transformation was new business models and growing top line revenue. What we're really starting to see now for those companies that did that 5, 6, 7 years ago is that optimization curve of now they're looking for how can we add more automation, and it's how can we reduce our costs. And previously I didn't care that I was getting I didn't care that to get 100x growth, it cost me 5x, but now I do. So how are you seeing that play out? Is it a similar thing for where you are? Like, is it just that these like non-tech companies are following that same curve, or is there a different approach?
I think with what we offer in terms of a machine learning platform that's been very well established, enables things at a much greater scale than these businesses could run themselves through alternative technical platforms. So it really, rather than creating kind of rules-based or manual triggers of what customers see, which can be time consuming and quite resource intensive to operate, we can support that so that they can do things in that way of really showing things that are relevant to customers without occurring all those operational costs in the labor and things like that. So I think that's where the Rokt integration is often very appealing, and it's also a very quick thing for them to do, which I know you should never say something's quick in the tech space to integrate, but that's something we do pride ourselves on, the ease of integrating and setting us up versus some alternatives, CRM, CRO platforms that can be very extensive to set up, and it's quite a long time until you see that return on investment versus Rokt, which is very quick.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So if I could cheekily paraphrase what from say my previous experience, what you're seeing now is kind of like a shortening and contraction of that. I'm going to grow and then I'm going to optimize that they can, because of that machine learning and some of the other tech enhancements that we've had, they can kind of skip the cost blowout to get the top line growth while still, being effective.
Yes, very well paraphrased. And I think the other thing is often when you're implementing technology as a revenue or marketing team, you're like, okay, we'll start with one proof of concept and then we'll really phase this out and iterate. Whereas you can move at a much greater pace with our platform and really scale and have a lot more offers and opportunity, which is getting you to that dollar benefit a lot quicker.
So the quickly scaling and like trying things is increasingly popular. Like as you say, a lot of technology projects fail because I can't do anything until I've done everything, and we just come. People don't want that anymore. Like we've learned the lessons of the 80s and 90s, and as much as the music was better then, we want to leave the rest of it behind. So, how is it that Rokt is able to just adopt that sort of like quick implementation and rollout approach? Like, is it because you're modular, or you can sequester what it is that Rokt is doing just to one component? Like, what's driving that point approach?
I think the way our products have been developed over the last 10 years, it definitely wouldn't have been that fast, I'd say, 5 to 10 years ago. But we've very much had that product-led scale mindset. We have over 500 partners today. So there's lots of consideration, and the product that I've been working on at the moment is not just building for one use case or building for one partner and then needing to, kind of modify again and again to enable you to have a scaled product. So we have those different ways that partners can configure already built in. So a lot of the questions that get raised in scoping calls and things like that, we have already encountered before. So that I think is where we're able to kind of jump in quite quickly.
Nice. I've got a couple of questions about product and direction, but something you said piqued my interest. You mentioned you've taken a PLG approach. However, you're also targeting large businesses. How does that work? Because typically we find that PLG is great when I can make the decision, but when it starts to involve more teams, I need sales support and that like product-led sales approach. Like, is that what Rokt is doing, or have you found a different winning path?
It's definitely a combination of the two. I wouldn't say that we are fully product-led or fully sales-led. I'd say we're sitting somewhere pretty comfortably in the middle. And it really relies on us as a product and engineering team to be thinking about how we scale and how we build things that are fit for multiple verticals or multiple size businesses, and where there's going to need to be optionality versus hard rules that will apply at a network level. So that's kind of our responsibility. And the other is just staying so connected to our go-to-market and client success teams and getting all those insights. So at the moment, for example, we're working on a product. We've already spoken to 15 kind of key enterprise clients about it at a high level. So we're already starting to get those insights brought in. But our product and engineering teams are so closely connected to our go-to-market team, and that's how we're able to, try and bridge that gap, because it is often a tussle. Yeah. And there are definitely enterprise businesses we work with that have very specific custom needs, and that's kind of a leadership decision of how much we're going to tailor things for them based on commercial benefit, but also strategic importance, and things like that, versus actually that's something we shouldn't do. That's very bespoke to you, and you'll need to find an alternative working with us. But we're very transparent with our clients as well. We don't try and just put on the shiny, glossy sales approach. So I think they really respect that collaboration of saying, well, that's not something we probably want to offer out of the box. Let's come to an agreement working with their solutions teams and things like that.
I can't love that more, of knowing who you're not for, like, especially for growing companies. And, I've seen this so many times in tech about, we can do anything, we can do everything. And it's not just a sales problem of, promising the world to close the deal, which is a harsh myth. But no, being able to say no like that, knowing what it is you're trying to achieve and who you're for also means knowing who you're not for. So that transparency, like, I have always taken that approach, whether I've been in marketing, sales, consulting, tech. How do you see that resonating from the product side of things?
It can be really difficult. Just to give an example, in our current product that we're working on, it's such early days, and we had one partner very keen to participate and be one of our alpha partners. But one of their pieces of technology is not something we intend to support. It's quite bespoke. It doesn't have large market share. So for us to integrate with that particular platform wouldn't make sense for us. But rather than just kind of closing out that conversation, we know that's a scenario that's going to come up again. Not everyone uses, there's so many different platforms out there. So rather than just shutting that down and say, well, we only support these other two integrations directly, we'll say, okay, you'll need to take this path, which is likely to be a little bit more development work on your side. But we will do that exploration and partner with you to support that. So that also gives us an opportunity to learn as well. So rather than just saying, no, we're not the right product for you, or this isn't going to work, kind of keeping that door open, which benefits both of us.
Okay. I'm reminded of a saying of, no is temporary, yes is forever. And so I like that.
Oh, and given I came from agency land, I'd say we're typically not very good at saying no in that space.
Yes. No, look, it can be hard sometimes. You sort of started to touch on some of the things that you're like driving that's new from your side. And I'm guessing this is part of the appeal as to why you joined Rokt in the first place. So there's lots happening in this space, right? Like, digital transformation is not, I think, even halfway. Like, there's so many businesses, there's so much to do. There's so much innovation happening in tech, and the world getting smaller. Like, I can get resources from anywhere in the world now, and while money is certainly more expensive than it was in 2020, historically it's still relatively cheap. So what's next? Like, what is it that you've been working on? Can you give us a bit of an insight?
I can, and I think you've given me a really nice lead in without meaning to. Because I do think this digital transformation that we've seen in a lot of businesses mean they have a lot more technology, and they have a lot technology platforms and a lot more teams
everywhere.
all trying to drive their own offers and messages and get all their campaigns kind of in front of customers. And that's something that Rokt has been really trying to drive in the market and with our clients for quite a while, because we know when consumers are bombarded by messages, we've all been to the website where you get the pop-ups on the right-hand screen and the left-hand screen and in front
Why
of
aren't
you,
they
and then
buying?
you've got and there's a ticker at the bottom and stuff, and we know through that they're just less likely to act. We've actually got research, they're 10 times less likely to act, actually, if you overwhelm them.
I'm glad you have scientific data on that, because I've had this argument for such a long time. I was even talking to a marketer yesterday about this thing that, they go to a visitor goes to the corporate blog, and then there's the pop-up, the exit pop, and there's a banner. And it's like, why don't they stay on site for a long time? Why don't they go and see something else? It's like, because you annoyed them.
Yeah, and they didn't know where to look.
Right? That too. Like, keep it simple, like low mental load, right? Like, one thing clearly. Yeah. So, okay. So what are you doing?
And I think the additional thing that we've seen within e-commerce around this is, it used to be that people would kind of do research on mobile, but then complete purchases on a desktop.
I'm guilty of that.
Safety thing. Yeah.
I'm the poster child.
More and more, we're seeing people are actually completing their purchases on their mobile device now. So when you've got all of those messages going, it's a smaller screen, like, there's just less place and less space for them to act. So we've been trying different approaches of how we solve this challenge for partners and encourage them onto our machine learning relevancy as, like, let's put everything in one decisioning engine and show them the right thing at the right time. But we probably just weren't making the step change that we needed. It was incremental changes that we were seeing, but not that really big shift, which was the problem that we were looking at, and where this idea has come from that we're currently working on.
Okay, and this idea could be about...
Yeah, so we're looking at a new experience that we can roll out post-transaction. So after a customer has actually completed a purchase on one of our partners' websites, showing an alternative experience to drive that additional value. I won't talk about the specifics of it, yes, just because we haven't released it yet. But yeah, basically looking to solve this paradox of choice post-checkout, showing the most relevant offer to customers.
So maybe the hidden thing that I really pulled out of there is, earlier you're talking about the close working relationship between product and go-to-market, sales, customer success. I know you, and even from this conversation, the relentless focus on the customer, right? Like, our thing is being buyer-led. It's the name of the show, right? So yep. Dive into a little bit more about, like, what was the specific, like, feedback? What was the impetus? Because, like, I love this whole thing of, like, the different teams working together to actually build a product from the beginning, as opposed to some bright person has a great idea. And it's like, okay, who can we sell this to, right? So obviously it's the other way around. Like, you've seen something and now you're serving that problem. Like, go into a bit more detail about that process.
So our leadership team actually saw the opportunity in market and found a business called Aftersell, which we acquired in January of this year. There was a lot of synergy in what Aftersell were doing in the Shopify space. So they're a Shopify app that enhances post-cart experiences, offering post-purchase upsells and things like that once an SMB has already secured that purchase. So there were a lot of synergies between their business and ours, hence the acquisition decision. And That was our reason for opening up the Canada office. And speaking with the team there were a lot of learnings about that post-checkout experience and the opportunities and the consumer mindset that we could potentially tap into. So by getting their learnings around UX and consumer behavior that they were seeing across their 20,000 Shopify clients, gave us a really good sense that there was opportunity in that space, and it was, to an extent, a validated idea. From there, we then started to speak to our enterprise clients about, Shopify and the SMB retail space is a little bit different to, some of the enterprise partners that we work with. But the appetite was definitely there. They also saw the opportunity. So that was the catalyst for a very quick prototype needing to be developed before Christmas.
Nice. And so, like, what was that period? How quickly did it happen?
Yeah, so I would say within the space of a couple of weeks, really. It timed really nicely with our end of year QBR process. Yep. So we were able to have our client success team speaking to a couple of key accounts about what this opportunity could look like, talking about that after sale acquisition, which is public knowledge at that point. And so we were able to get that real time feedback and know this was something worth pursuing.
Nice.
So myself and the engineers then had to work out how do we do that outside of a Shopify ecosystem, and then working with product design on what are the differences, because it isn't just an identical lift and shift.
Yep. And so from a Rokt perspective, what is it that you're expecting this additional product to do? Is it opening up new markets? Is it expanding share of wallet in existing accounts? Like, how is this driving, business success?
Yeah, so we're expecting it to do two things for us. One is to drive 3 times the value that some of our existing products do, by
Nice.
adjusting the journey in some way. And the other is that it will be incremental development as well. So there's a couple of different use cases within the product. So some will be driving that growth comparatively to our existing product. Others will be creating new revenue opportunities.
Okay. And from the customer perspective, 3x growth for you is nice, right? Like everyone wants to see that sort of metric on the dashboard. What from the customer perspective, what's their top line benefit for them?
Is removing all of the distractions and messages around their experience and just presenting the most relevant and kind of an exclusive offer as well to them that they're very unlikely to see anywhere else in the market. You're not going to probably see the same offer in a display ad or on social media. It's that closed marketplace enables it to really be unique, and so very much worth their while taking up and not hidden between a bunch of other things on that post-checkout experience.
So almost kind of like a hyper personalization that I am offering this to you because you're you.
Yes, okay. You're you and at the right moment. So the context of that transaction as well. So really tapping into what you've just purchased with that partner and that being relevant as well to that experience.
It's almost a bit like a double bubble, right? Like, we talk about being buyer-led. You're helping your buyers be buyer-led, which is even cooler, right? Yeah. So
what's good for the end customer is ultimately good for the partner. So that's why it's one of our core values at Rokt, and what we're really pushing more and more for. So we're doing as well, we've already done our first batch of consumer usability testing. For our next phase of product development, we have another round that we will do, as well as more discovery research to make sure we're also just not making assumptions on how consumers behave, or doing what I always like bash out of people, which is sample size of 1, because I purchased something on the weekend and this is what I experienced.
Therefore, it is true always, every time, everyone, everywhere. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
no, I feel
making sure we avoid that. And it can be a bit more complex for us because there are lots of different verticals we're serving with this, from travel and airlines to cinema to live entertainment, and a customer's mindset, as well as that transaction experience, is quite different between them. So making sure we're aware of those nuances as well, and not just doing one size fits all approach.
Well, look, if you deal with any barbecue fabricators and they're listening, I would love a unique offer about a nice new offset or an Argentinian Perilla. If anyone's listening, that'd be great. I just came back
more
from
exciting.
Meatstock,
I need to buy a dryer, so
different needs.
There you go.
Okay, and so obviously the response so far in the co-development beta testing has been promising. How are you looking at rolling that out? Is that just going to be like, hey, this product is launched, or are you going to target specific sectors or segments or geographies or industries?
Yeah, so for the first phase of the product, we're limiting it to 3 alpha partners, just so we can start to run a really controlled experiment, start to collect that data before we then move into a broader rollout. And even with those partners, we will limit the traffic exposure. We, want to make sure that we haven't missed anything, or that it is performing to those objectives of, 3 times and getting that more engaged consumer, like we hypothesize we will. And that's also while we're starting to build phase 2 of the product. So, and doing that tech exploration, because we see that there's so many different use cases. It's probably not so much build phase 1, test phase 1, and then you lose all that time in between. We already can see different opportunities. So remaining iterative and quite agile with how we're rolling it out, but very much restricting in the beginning, and then going from there, which is quite common at Rokt. Yeah.
Nice. So waterfall, bad, and process constrained agile, also bad. Not safe.
Slow as well.
Right, yes. But also not haphazard, where we're just, shooting from the hip, right? We've got a plan, right? No, love it. And so from a Courtney perspective, what is success here going to bring?
So success is going to be that we start to hit some of those metrics, so that all my hypotheses can be proven out.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I'm really keen to overcome with this product is a kind of positioning and messaging challenge we've had. So a lot of people within the business have really latched on to one use case and see it as being really valuable to the customer, to our partners. But I actually think this is a broader holistic benefit that we can see from the product. And that was a bit of a learning we had of, we just need to get to that fully realized product, and that's what's going to be good. Everything before that is just getting us to that end goal, when actually there's so much value we can drive along the way. So personally, I want to make sure we are delivering value and showing that higher engagement rate, that additional revenue at all of those touch points. That's kind of I like to prove people wrong.
Love it. Look, having worked in sales and obviously continuing to work with sales, they can be a hard judge, and not always unfairly, but definitely there is a lot of advantages to proving out this market and then this market, like where the product is today, sell what's on the truck. What I've found, and it'd be interesting to get your insights, that yes, you have your aspiration. This is the end of the marathon that we want to get to in 6-12 months, whatever that timeline is. But along the way, let's just focus here, be the best that we can be here. By limiting today actually gets us to next week faster, right? If that makes sense, that you get more learnings by focus, and thus you can develop faster, you can go to market faster, you can close faster. Is that the same sort of like approach and learnings that you've seen?
Yeah, that's the approach we've taken. So we've restricted it to 5 verticals that make the most sense to start with and pitch and focus. If one of our sales team believes strongly in an additional opportunity, obviously it's not closed off, but our focus is very much on supporting those verticals to begin with, and also restricting certain use cases. So, with an upsells example, certain products we will be able to support, certain ones we won't. So, in the beginning, it's not that fully realized solution. I think just being really clear, all my documents are this is out of scope, or this is coming in the future. But also looking where there could be opportunities for our partners to get us there quicker. So, saying Rokt won't be able to support this directly. However, there could be an alternative pathway if that's something really valuable and really promising we should explore first. So not trying to, knowing what that 6 to 12 month plan is, but, not trying to dictate every single milestone at this point, being somewhat flexible on what that could look like.
Yeah, look, I've always found that when you can tell, a customer or a buyer that, hey, we can't do this, but here's an alternative, even if you're sending them to a competitor, which, I've had sales management yell at me many times for doing this, they always come back because, I'm the one who helped them. I didn't try and sell them something that I knew they didn't need. And so, that always pays off, and it goes back to the transparency. But again, to your previous point of, I don't want a sample of one. If I've got one data point from 5,000 different, pools, is nowhere near as powerful as getting 50 data points in one vertical. And so I learn more so I can do more and do it quicker.
Yeah. And as an example, one of our largest clients, I was speaking with the sales team just last week around our experimentation plan for this alpha phase. And we kind of agreed that it's just not fit for purpose given their broader business context and some of the other challenges that client is trying to overcome at the moment. So they don't actually fit kind of within what we need to achieve. And we'll develop a separate experimentation plan and support them because they're, very important and a long-standing client of ours. But we still need to get those data points across those 3 partners. So we're going and finding other ones that are more suitable rather than just saying, okay, we're going to customize for you and kind of try and make that data say what we originally wanted it to say. So I think being really open and having that good dialogue with sales teams is important. Yes.
And even as it's kind of been an undercurrent through this conversation of that respect for the route to market through the channel, that partners want good vendors to work with, right? It's no different to the end customer. And so doing right by your distribution network is in some cases more important than the end customer, right? Because they're your gateway. That's the access, right? So
definitely.
So what's next? What's further out on the horizon?
Further out on the horizon, we're actually already underway with requirements for phase 2. So the MVP is, I think we're about two days away from completing our testing at the moment. So very, very much in the mix of getting that first MVP out. But phase 2 is already underway in terms of requirements gathering. It's going to have a much bigger impact on various areas of the business, such as machine learning and some of our operations teams. So getting all of that prepped, I'm deep in the largest PRD I think I've ever written at the moment.
2-pager. That's all you need. 2 pages. You don't need anything more.
Oh gosh, I think we're well past that at this stage. But it's really also it's great within our business. People are so willing to be forthcoming with information and have kickoffs and things like that, so you don't get a list of requirements that's not feasible or you've missed a bunch of things. So that is currently underway, as well as once we've got those experiments live, we've started to capture that data, starting to roll out that phase 1 product. So it is kind of standalone. It can go to multiple partners while we're building that next iteration. So lots going on at the moment, as well as a bunch of user testing that we're going to kick off in a couple of weeks. So, yeah. Nice.
So definitely got your hands full.
I do.
Yeah, no, love it. So where can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you, learn more about your journey or what you're doing? What's the best way?
LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. Courtney Bain, currently as a senior product manager at Rokt. So you should be able to use LinkedIn search and find me there, drop me a DM. I'm always happy to chat.
Nice. Well, thank you. I've learned a lot, and it makes me happier to see more of this collaborative approach and like really focusing on the end buyer and in your case, the distribution network as well, about knowing what you're for, what you're not for, and just like really focusing on actual problems. So this has been great. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
You've been listening to the Buy-Led Growth Show, where we help you scale without wasting spend.